Hello, Helen.
Hello, Steve.
How are you?
I'm very well indeed, thank you. It's really great to be talking to you.
Yeah, and you. Thank you for coming along. Um, while the good members of the Awakened Pages group and Scottish People's Forum are joining, you and I will just chew the fat and catch up.
Yeah, have a blather.
How are you?
Yeah, good. The house is in chaos at the moment because not only do I have five 5-week-old puppies,
I've
um,
met, I've had the good fortune to meet.
yeah, yeah. I've also just taken possession of 3 chickens. So,
Right. Okay. So that's all set up now as well.
yeah, so it's yeah. I have never dealt with quite as much crap in my entire life.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. Well, listen, you take a lot on and you're doing a lot of work. So as I said, that's the members joining us now. So what we're going to do is we're going to sort of have a deep dive into your journey over the last year and a half. You know,
Yeah,
almost coming up 2 years now when you really think about it. You know, it won't be that long before it's two 2 years. So you've been on a bit of a journey. Your world's been turned upside down. You've put your head above the parapet in quite a few different ways. Um, so tell me, what first raised your suspicions that all was not right and that you started to get the alarm bells ringing?
well, when I go back to March 2020, I can't claim to be one of those people who instantly thought, yeah, this is a complete overreaction. I saw the video footage coming out of China and coming out of Italy. Italy, in particular, rocked me, um, and I was genuinely afraid. Watched, on the sofa with my husband and son beside me and the dog in between. We watched that uh, broadcast by the Prime Minister from Downing Street, and I thought, yes, this was. It felt like being put on a war footing. Um, and I was, oh God, I was insufferable. I was gung ho. I was, yes, blitz spirit. Let's all pull together. Sort of shopping for neighbours who were shielding, obeying the minutiae of all of the restrictions as they came out, even. And yeah, I wince to remember it, even out there with my pots and pans clapping for the
Yeah,
NHS, forcing my poor son to play, to get his guitar out and play Scotland the Brave. I have so many, I have apologized for that so many times. Um, and I suppose it was as the summer wore on that
mm,
I just couldn't understand the justification for any further restrictions. We
mm,
knew very, very swiftly that the people most at risk from the virus were the very old and the very ill. And the rationale behind locking up healthy populations was just insane. It just doesn't stack up. It has never been done in history before. We took all of our pandemic plans, we ripped them in two and threw them out and set fire to them,
yeah,
and copied what China, who, I mean, come on, there must have been smart people in government at that point thinking, maybe we ought to take with a little pinch of salt whatever is coming, whatever news is coming out from China. Now, we took something that they did in one of their provincial towns and we've applied it across the whole of the Western world.
yeah,
I, I so yes, so by midsummer, looking at the ONS data of hospitalizations, of of deaths and the age groups of those deaths, thinking this just doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the furlough money flowing out, and this there we were, we're all in this together. Lots of little boats bobbing around on this tide of our money, our children's money, our grandchildren's money. And not really, and everyone who was kind of okay with this money, everyone who could easily work from home, or who could be put on furlough, and then if they wanted to do another job, great, they could do another job. We were kind of being bribed with our own money into compliance, into
Yeah.
complacency. And I just saw the small businesses start to struggle, those who weren't, all the jobs. When I left school after being an absolute disaster zone at school first time around, I did a whole range of different jobs. I worked in a pizzeria, I worked in a bar, I worked in a pub, I was a translator, I worked in events, I worked in conferences, I worked in delis. I did so many people facing jobs that you don't need specific training for, but that these are fabulous starter jobs
Yeah.
for a whole raft of young people. And I'm watching and I'm seeing all of those jobs disappearing. The businesses, the small businesses shutting. Yes, and even the large companies, when you look, I mean, our high streets have been struggling for a while, and it's not just COVID, but my God, COVID was the nail in the coffin.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. They weren't doing particularly well before this, and
no,
the writing was kind of on the wall. Habits were changing, how much people drink, all of that kind of stuff, and the way people socialise. But this whole change has made it almost impossible. And you're right about that furlough money. I mean, cloud cuckoo land. When did the government ever say, "Well, we'll just pay everybody"? You know,
I know,
I mean,
I know.
Boris at the start more or less said, "Go home, don't worry about your mortgages, we'll pay
Yeah,
them."
yeah,
You know, and that's what got people into their houses first time around, Helen.
yes. Yeah, it is. It is. We were, I mean, that and being, well,
Terrified of, yeah,
another thing that has just stuck in my throat for the entire time is that if you had a nice house and a garden, and if you were either being furloughed or you could fairly painlessly work from home, even though it sucks, um, you were okay.
hmm
But the people doing the deliveries are still out there. The people, the the key workers
hmm
aren't just the NHS. The people keeping the supermarket stocked, the people in all elements of the food chains, the people keeping the electricity working, the phone lines working, our our water, our all of these people had no choice and kept on working throughout, working under insanely difficult conditions. But if we were at home, it was like, oh yes, we're doing the right thing, we're
yeah,
being responsible citizens, we're staying at home, and all of those utterly now vomit-inducing memes that Facebook was flooded in about be kind, be nice. The
yeah,
moment the world stopped and took stock. And I just think we were such idiots
yeah,
as our freedoms, things that I had regarded as inalienable freedoms,
hmm
being whittled away as we cooed smugly at each other for doing the right thing. It's just,
yeah,
oh
yeah.
God.
Well, if you look at it in Australia, Australia's a very good example of where we were first time around. We can, if we were in Australia, we'd be able to look in the rearview mirror. And I'm watching the Aussies just now rolling their sleeves up, and I'm fully protected now, and they've got their wee badges, and they're changing their Facebook profiles. They they haven't heard anything. That they've got the army on the streets, they've got the police on the streets, instant fines. You know, real tyrannical, authoritarian government.
Yeah.
I watched a Dern in New Zealand say there was one case and it's the Delta variant and it came in from New South Wales and we're trying to work out how it got here. Now, we've got 20,000, I don't know how many cases yesterday, and we're opening up. She locked the whole thing down for one case, and they're trying to
Mm.
work out how that case got there. You know, if that's the policy for any countries that are supposedly leading the way or leading the charge of that, and then you've got something that we're going to talk about is the Scottish government and the other four nations will in the UK will be following very quickly this extension of these powers. You know,
Yeah.
for the next pandemic, Helen. You know, I don't think they've handled the last pandemic very well to give them charge of the next pandemic. I don't really want them to be making these same kind of decisions again because there's only so long we've got with this economy and the fragility of the minds and the splitting up of families and friendships that's already happened and the division within this society. You stick
Yeah.
another pandemic on that, you stick an extension on this, and this thing is fractured beyond repair if we're not careful.
I wish I could not take you seriously, but I do. It is there is only so much resilience that we have, and we need to stop this nonsense now. The um, the document that the Scottish government brought out earlier on this week, just as Afghanistan was taking
Yeah.
up more of the headlines, is called COVID Recovery, a consultation on public health, public services, and justice system reforms. Now, it's on the Scottish Government website on gov.scot. It is an 82-page PDF, and the end of the consultation and the consultation, which they are asking for a consultation, and don't we all have consultation and petition fatigue? But this is one which, if anyone goes away from this video thinking anything, give your feedback into this consultation.
Yeah.
It is the single most important thing that you can do now. I think it is absolutely vital. And I haven't read it in detail. I have skimmed it and read what journalists are saying about it, and it is absolutely terrifying.
Hmm.
Under the umbrella of public health, there is a permanent mandate to be able to close schools at the drop of a hat, to impose stay-at-home orders like that, with no emergency legislation needed whatsoever. So,
Hmm.
so this is making the emergency legislation permanent.
Yeah.
Up a fight, please. Yeah.
And this is going out to a UK wide audience, but because Sturgeon is enjoying the dictator hat that she's wearing. She's liking it. She's quite happy. She's happy to rock the boat and happy to slam the table with her fist and put her
I
foot down and let us know what she's going to do. Um,
think it's savior complex. I think that I am God. Please let us make it through 15 years and look back at our analysis then of when we look back at how we are behaving now, because I think it will be textbook case of when the world went mad,
oh,
uh, and
absolutely.
definitely savior complex, as well as just this intoxication of power. When you kick in, I don't think she's telling herself, I just want more power in order to. No, it's like, I am saving Scotland. It is this terrifying
Hmm.
psychological process that I must do these unpopular measures because these are my actions. I'm saving my people. It
Yeah.
is, and that is way more dangerous than, I think, than somebody who is just out for power.
Yeah.
That level of delusion is absolutely spine chilling.
Yeah. It's terrifying. Now back to so when the alarm bells went off, you decided, and you and I are just to to fill in some gaps for people. You and I were in a meeting in Zoom when I met you for the first time,
Yeah.
and we were in a small little group who were all challenging and poking and prodding and asking questions about, what can we do, you know, um, trying to put solutions forward and, different ways to go about it. And there's protesting and there's writing to, politicians and your MPs, and there's legal angles, and there was all sorts of things. And you that night were joining that particular group for the first time, and I was looking forward to meeting with you because you had this idea that you were going to announce in the group. Now, do you want to? Yeah, so you announced your idea, and it was a kind of one-woman protest idea. You were going to go out and make this stand yourself, and you didn't need 50 or 100 or 1,000 people to join you. You were going to stand in your truth and stand in your flame and do it all on your own. And it was really, really good. Do you want to
Yeah.
explain where the idea came from and what you built it into, and the fact that you're still actually doing it at this stage?
Um, all over the winter, I was in despair. I was on Twitter. I was online. I was finding fellow critical thinkers. We were all despairing about it, but nothing happened, and our energies were just getting dissipated. And I kept saying to my husband, "This is never going to end. If we don't do
Hmm.
something, this is never going to end." And he was saying, "No, no, no. We've got these vaccines now, and once the top 4 groups are vaccinated, then just hang on for that." And I suspected that no, that was not going to be it because it still didn't make sense. Um, but I said, okay, all right, we will wait. And my reasoning was, by the middle of February, the vast majority of the top 4 groups had had their first vaccination, conferring protection against severe symptoms and hospitalizations, according to the science of the time. Give them 3 weeks for immunity to be conferred, and I thought, right, that's it. There is now even less justification for any
Hmm.
of these measures. So, as of this moment, I consider myself, I do not recognize the authority that any restrictions on my liberty.
Hmm.
But everywhere was shut.
Right.
Nobody noticed that that I was bravely standing up there and not paying a blind bit of notice to anything. Actually, the first thing I did was I got into my car and I drove down to Salisbury to see my mum for
Just
Mother's
when you
Day.
had the distance, the boundaries, you couldn't pass a certain area. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
all of that
yeah,
nonsense.
yeah.
Yeah, I
No, no,
know.
no, no, no. I wasn't supposed to leave Fife at that point.
Well, they'll
And
bring that back though, under these new rules. That's there for a reason. They will bring that back
yes,
under
they will.
under
They
under climate change. They'll say, you know, the air quality is too bad today. You can't drive out with your local authority
Yep,
area.
yep, yep. No, no. Yes, I see it coming like a great big express train.
Yep.
Um, so I got into my car. I drove down, and driving down, it's like once you're on the, I don't know. I kind of imagined. I was really very conventional. I was even maybe imagining roadblocks. I mean, I know this sounds so
Yeah.
silly, but with all of the narrative and only, news, you think, God, is this, what if I'm stopped?
Well,
I,
the police actually said no to roadblocks here.
yes,
But they did do it in Ireland and places like that, so- and
yeah,
in Australia. So roadblocks were quite common. I mean, I think the government here, but I think the police stood up and said, "No, we're not policing in
yeah,
that particular way." Um, but they would have had. So I don't think to imagine that you were out with the realms of imagination. I think, and that's the problem, Helen. You had maybe Granny and Granda desperate to see the grandkids, and they're just over the council area. They've never committed a crime in their whole damn lives, okay? And they jump in the car and they do the right thing and they see the kids from the car. They don't get out and they, they see them in the garden and it's torture for everybody. But they're driving back and they feel like criminals for the first time in their life, looking at police cars and looking at that. Are they going to pull us over? You know,
yeah,
that is the level of mental abuse that this government is
yes,
capable of doing to its
yes.
citizens, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Yes, And the fact that we were, the fact that people were dying alone,
Exactly.
with
Exactly.
their families forbidden from seeing them.
I know.
We let people die alone. I will never forgive them.
Yeah,
The
for that. I know.
monstrous inhumanity of
Yeah.
taking everything that is sacred about being human, the being able to to hold the hand
I know.
of someone you love at their darkest hour, and we cut, isolated, we made rules, we criminalized people. That it is despicable.
There must be a lot of people living with that just now and
With the guilt.
looking back. Yeah, and not their fault for anybody who's in that
No, not
position
their
because
fault.
yeah, it's not their fault in the slightest. That's the power of government. You know,
Yeah.
I saw some guys. Where was I today? I saw people in masks. Yeah, I was dropping my son off at gymnastics, and I saw these people outside with masks on. I thought, see if the government said tomorrow you don't need to wear that, they would take it off immediately. They wouldn't have any thoughts about COVID or anything like that. They would be off their face in 2 seconds flat. Because the government said it's still mandatory, they're on. So they're listening to every word that the government's saying, or they're virtue signalling, or they just don't want to stand out from the crowd and be that, or they've committed that they've been in too long. But yeah, there's loads of challenges with that. So moving back onto the what you did next thing, because this is quite important. So you're not happy. You're
So,
beginning to
so
break the rules. You're driving anywhere you want with impunity. No one's going to stop you. You're crashing through roadblocks if you have to get to where you want to get to. Okay, so and then you think this isn't exciting enough. I need more. I want to challenge myself more. So
I thought, I thought this needs to end, and it's not going to end until people start taking actions.
mhm,
One of the really clever things about isolation and lockdowns is that you don't see other people. So you can't see whether other people are behaving or complying or not. So I realized that if I I really took it to be my moral duty at that point to go and start opposing measures.
mhm,
But there was a limit to what I could do within the law, because at that time, in March of 2021, we were still under what a friend of mine calls house arrest, which I think is much better than stay-at-home orders. And the reasons given, cast your minds back, to why we could leave our home were shopping, medical care, and exercise, daily
mhm,
exercise. And those were the only reasons. So I thought, well, I will use this, my daily exercise. And whilst I am taking my daily exercise, I'm going to protest. So I'm going to walk. I mean, I live in St Andrews. It's a sleepy little town, university town, of course, no students, lots of older residents, most of whom have been absolutely terrified, who were masked outside, who lonely, isolated. I mean, we had such a vibrant cultural life here. So many talks and concerts and choirs and societies and everything shut. So I thought, well, I want to reconnect with my neighbours. I want to
mhm,
share a smile. I want to see somebody's face smiling. And I want to lift the spirits because this was March. It had been a long, cold winter.
mhm,
So right, I'm going to get dressed up in bright colours. I'm going to do my exercise walking around my town centre, and I'm going to just say hello to people, and I'm going to start conversations, and I'm going to, what could be the icebreaker? What could I do? I'm going to hand out cake. And that is how Cake and Liberty started. So my first time was in March, and you came to it, and I'm so glad of that support.
yeah. I'm just
Um,
going to put that up just now, just because
yeah,
that's your
yeah,
That was us. That was me meeting you face to face for the first time. So you weren't just wandering around your town. You've got the Mary Poppins colourful dress on. You've got
Yeah,
the big sign "Enough is enough," and you're handing out free cake, and you're
yeah,
smiling, engaging, and talking to people. And if you can get a conversation going about the insanity of the restrictions, then you're letting people see that they're not alone. So it was a
yeah,
lot more than maybe just walking around. Um, that's you at another protest that we organised in May that you were at,
yeah,
and there are some of your lovely little cakes. So you've set up a website which has got a blog on it,
yeah.
cakeandliberty.org, is that right?
Cakeandliberty.org. Yeah,
Yeah. And the cakes that you make, you hand make them and you hand them out
I do.
completely free of charge.
I am not a baker, so I rely on Mary Berry's cookbook that my sisters-in-law gave me, and I bake chocolate brownies and I bake banana bread. And I cut them up into small squares, put them into those little cellophane bags. And because the first time that I was handing them out, I didn't have the cards. I think some people thought I was advertising for a local bakery or something.
Yeah, yeah. So
So anyway, I've had those cards made, and on the other side of the cards, it says, you know, we've protected the vulnerable. It's time now to stop being afraid and get on and live our lives. I say I've got
mhm,
three messages that are very Scotland specific, which is no masks in schools, because in Scotland, secondary school pupils still have to wear masks, and for some, this can be up to 8 hours a day with a travel on school buses. I say no to vaccine ID, which I think is an appalling,
mhm,
divisive, totalitarian. Only evil will come from.
yeah,
And I say don't jab healthy kids. Now, my views on the vaccination have changed significantly over time. Um, my position now is that um, anyone in the vulnerable categories should be offered it if they wish. Um, I would frankly make it illegal to give to anyone under the age of 50 who doesn't have some kind of underlying health condition where it might be of it might serve. But this whole scale rollout of a leaky, imperfect vaccination, gene therapy, at the height of a pandemic
yeah,
is is it is the, according to all epidemiological knowledge, that is the single worst thing that you can do. You are
yeah,
almost selecting for um, more virulent strains to emerge by doing that. It's quite different if you've got something like smallpox, which completely eradicates. Once you are vaccinated for smallpox, you do not get it and you do not transmit it. This is not the
mhm,
case, as Public Health England came out and said yesterday with the vaccines, where the viral load in vaccinated and unvaccinated is identical.
yeah.
So I'm
And
actually now very afraid that what we are doing hasn't just not made much better, but I'm also worried that it might have made things a lot worse.
yeah,
But I don't know.
and when
I'm not a scientist, so again, these are based on what I read, and I try to read things that challenge my views as well.
and so when you're handing out these cakes and you're having these conversations, and then you're at a particular stage in March where it's kind of heavy. Not too many people are really questioning it. I mean, there's lots of people who are what we call awakened to this, um, but we're the minority for sure. What was the reactions like from people, generally speaking?
A lot of people. Okay, it's changed a lot. Now there are many more people who have grave reservations about the restrictions and about what we're doing, and especially about vaccinating children.
Hmm.
The worry about human rights disappearing is also now more flagged up. initially, but now those who do disagree with me are far more um, are far less civil about it. I have
That's right. They're very angry bunch now.
read
They're
very,
very
very
defensive.
yes, and it's only recently that I've had really any kind of negative experiences. I've had people who have said I disagree with you, and this is why. And we've had discussions, and it has been very interesting understanding why people and it's fear. But up until recently, the most common response from was actually people saying, "Yes, I think I don't agree with this either." So I think there are more of us than you fear,
Hmm.
Steve. If people disagreed, they said, "Well, yes, I do agree with you, but it's just not yet. It's not safe yet."
Yeah,
And I'd say, "Okay, it's not safe yet. So when will it be safe?"
yeah,
And just in a very non-confrontational way to saying, okay, every Saturday when I go out, I inform myself with the Scottish government figures of how many people are in hospital with COVID and how many people are in ICU
yeah. Uh,
with COVID.
So
So
you're doing this every Saturday, and you want to make sure that you're up to date on the
yes,
figures. So
I
if
do.
you have,
I
yeah,
do. I do. I did it even when in St Andrews there was an outbreak of students testing positive, and people were much more twitchy about it then because students are the devil, aren't they? Um, so I've seen the since March, I've seen the patterns. But I would ask people, I'd say, okay, so at the moment, and there was one point when there were 4 people in intensive care out of 5.5 million of us in Scotland. And I said, okay, so now there are 50, I think. Um, I said, okay, so if it's not safe, if you don't feel safe now, and that's okay, when will you feel safe? What numbers do you need to see? What criteria need to be met? What has to happen for you to feel safe? And to a person, all of them, every single one of them went, and
hmm,
as they gaped at me, I could see as clear as day that that thought had never occurred to them. They
hmm,
had never in their minds contemplated being safe again, what
yeah,
being safe might look like.
yeah, yeah,
And that's when you realize the power of the propaganda. That's when you realize that we have had some of the brightest brains in our country, in our government, in our psychological behavioral units, working on the nudges, working on the
yeah,
messaging, working. We are, people had internalized the message that they were not safe.
yeah,
And it goes so deep.
yeah.
I think there are people who will go to their grave, if they live for another 40 years, they will go to their grave scared. What
Yeah, it's terrifying.
we have done is unforgivable.
It's a very astute point you make there. The programming is very, very strong, and to an extent, it's why when challenged, they don't. There is no civilized debate in the UK. You can't have a conversation around the kitchen table on this stuff. You can't have a conversation in the work canteen. You can't go to the pub and have a civilized conversation about this because it just messes with the wiring of the brain. You know, the programming's so strong that when you say something against it, people who wouldn't normally be aggressive are becoming aggressive. I don't think we are. I genuinely don't think we are because I think that we're dealing with the propaganda in a particular way. Although I do think we get our own type of propaganda delivered in a
We
different way.
do,
Yeah.
we
To,
do, and it's just as unhelpful, frankly.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's, it's interesting that you say that you've noticed that people are more aggressive as you've come through, even up to maybe recently, would you say? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. This
And I
time,
think that's happening to people in in the groups, I see it a lot. Families falling out, husbands, wives are falling out, people splitting up all over this experiment. Sh- should you take it? Should you not take it? Can you come to a party because of it? Am I still going to be your husband or wife because of it? This is some serious head games that have been played here with people over this. As you say, I don't know how you get out of it if this fear factor, as I said, back to New Zealand, one case, shut the whole country down, and let's work out how that case got here. That's how we're going to deal with viruses or whatever you want to call this disease moving forward, or any disease. And then you've got the Scottish Government wanting to extend, which means that they can do this forever. Now, the problem there is we have the perspex screens, we have the traffic light systems, we have the one-way signs, we have the mask mandate, we have the experience of lockdown 3 weeks to flatten the curve, we have the let's save the NHS, let's give furlough money out to Tom, Dick, and Harry because it's money from the magic money tree anyway. Who cares? And it's back to what's going on behind the scenes here. What is this agenda? Because to believe the official narrative, you'd have to be mad because there's no way you would do this. After all, after the way we've lived as a society all this time, to shut it down for these reasons, for this particular incidence of a disease.
For a virus which has a fatality rate of what 0.015. I mean, it's like, in terms of survivability, yes, there are certain more at-risk groups for whom only 92% of that cohort
Hmm.
will survive. But even for the most ill, it's still not a very it's still not that dangerous when you compare it to other things like Ebola, like yellow fever, say.
Yeah.
And the fact that the average age of death from COVID is still 82 in the UK, which is a year older than average death from all causes. I
Yeah,
mean,
but they
it's
never really publish that, do they? I mean, it's
no,
never,
no. Well,
you
they
know,
did. They did at the start, I think.
yeah.
But yeah, you can't. The official narrative. Once you start thinking, hang on a minute, this doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. But there is such a reluctance, and I know that there's a reluctance because I had that same reluctance. I fought so hard against going against the logical steps of, well, if what is going on, and I still attribute incompetence and cock up and panic and fear to a lot of what happened. Certainly, I think there are organizations and businesses who have seen opportunities beyond their wildest dreams to further
Hmm.
their agendas and who have leapt upon this.
Hmm.
Um, um, I mean, if you were running a big pharmaceutical company, corporation, and you saw the opportunity of having every single person in the Western world have twice two treatments and then a twice yearly or once yearly treatment in perpetuity. I, I honestly think that so much of why we are still where we are now is because of the money, is because people are making billions.
Well, in many ways,
Of the PCR testing, of the
yeah,
lateral flow testing,
absolutely.
of the there are there are yeah, I don't know enough about the role of the unions in this, but I suspect that that has not been helpful. But yeah, the virus itself does not justify any of the measures that we have taken. So why are we doing them? I don't know.
Well, it's a good point you make on the PCR test, which is never really talked about enough. What's it costing, and why are they giving them out like sweeties? They've got the PCR test you can get twice a week for free. to test yourself even when you don't feel sick in the slightest. They're giving them out, you know, everywhere. How many have been done? How much has it cost? What's the bill for it so far? You know, so when you look at all of these things in that infrastructure, that's the sort of worrying thing. But back to the cake and liberty idea, because I wanted there's a particular question I want to ask you about it. So you started as a one woman band, you went
Yeah,
out on your own. I think you toyed with the idea of it was going to be something that you took national and then you set up the website and you might get more and more people to do it. And then I think you came back to the what I believe is the correct conclusion that it wasn't about that. It wasn't about this being a thing that hundreds or thousands of people did. It was your thing that you were doing for for, for
yeah,
your
you're,
reasons, and you made it you made it that you didn't put yourself under any unnecessary
yeah,
pressure and you didn't drag your whole life into it. I came through to visit you the other week because I was coming to see you again doing the the Cake and Liberty in St Andrews, and we just missed you. But then we came to see you anyway and see your wee new puppies and all of that, and it was a great day for the kids. So that was lovely. But again, you're not spending your whole day doing it. You're
yeah,
getting dressed, you're going out, you got your cakes. It is a commitment. But had you made this a national thing with lots of teams of people throughout the UK, the amount of you'd have turned your life upside down. And I
yeah.
think you made a good call there. You've kept it to yourself, and a few others as well.
Yeah, I mean, there are others who sometimes do it because it's a nice thing. It's anyone can do it. Now, some of the people in my Cake and Liberty Facebook group, and incidentally, if you're watching this, please come and join.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a good group actually.
um, are have said to me, it takes a lot more guts for me to go out in my local town where people know me,
Yeah,
where I'm putting my social reputation, I'm putting everything that I've built up in the 10 years plus that I've lived here. I am accepting that there are going to be people who will talk badly about me, who do now. I mean,
yeah.
God, there are members of my own family that do. So I'm sure there will be neighbours who do. It is really hard to versus going on a march, which is fantastic and wonderful, and you're with like minds, and it's one of the most exhilarating things ever, and I heartily recommend it. But to actually standing on your own or with one or two other people, engaging people that you might know or who might know you in conversation, saying why you are going pretty much single-handedly up against the entire political and medical and legal establishment.
Hmm.
And it's a lonely place to be, and it does. Every Saturday, I have to steel myself to do it
Yeah,
because of I know I will at some point meet conflict. Every Saturday, I am delighted. It's a bit like going for a run when I still ran. You've really got to psych yourself up to get
yeah.
out the door, but you never regret having done it once you've done it. And it's if I tried to make it some big thing, and yes, when I was coming up with the idea, I did think, "Oh, maybe we could have people handing out cakes in towns all over the country if this takes off." Um, it didn't, which is fine. Uh,
But yeah, I think that was, you know, fateful one, and a bit of you not wanting it to and not pushing it. I think you could have got that had you kept pushing it if you wanted. But I don't.
yeah, but it would have eaten me alive.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
every time that somebody, I'd have been trying to micromanage everything, saying, "Who have we got in Stonehaven? Who have we?" It's like, no, no, enough. If people want to do something, and people have, and they have met their neighbours, and they've re-engaged with neighbours, they've met other people. It it doesn't really matter. It was one of those things that it was an idea that came up almost at the same time that Stand in the Park came up.
Yeah.
And Stand in the Park has taken off, and that's all you need. You only need a few of these things to take off, to get going. And for me, Stand in the Park has taken over that role that Cake and Liberty might have had on a wider scale. But
Yeah.
for me, what it does is the lovely James, who set up my website for me, added a blog just because, well, you're going to want a blog, aren't you? And I was like, no, I don't want a blog. So it was very much an afterthought, but I started writing it. And it was initially just, how I make my banner, how I do this. But what it has become through the people that I talk to, both those who agree with me and those who disagree with me, the kind of thinking that it is making me do. I'm reaching thousands of people with my
Hmm.
blog, whereas I can only reach about 100 with my cakes every Saturday.
The blog is very good, and you wrote a piece recently which is on your blog and on the Awaken Pages
Yeah,
blog.
lifelines.
Lifelines, very, very well received, very well written. All of your blog posts have been really good. So that's another thing that you are very good at, and it's a case of how do we get more of that out because it's very readable. Somebody called it word porn the other day. Jane was, it is very good. I mean, phenomenal writing work, Helen. Really excellent, and so definitely keep that side going. That's a strength. Not everybody can write in that way, and if you've got these ideas and you can get them out and people can read them, it's really connecting with people and use that platform to,
Yeah,
to get
it's,
those messages out because it will help people and it helps them think things through properly and it helps them realize that there's intelligent people in this game who are thinking it through. We're not all quackaloons, as some people call
yeah,
it,
yeah,
um, tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorists. There is a level of intelligence to the people who are questioning this, and that's an important message to get across. So the more people who write intelligently about this, then the more sane our arguments become, if that makes sense.
yeah. I am. I'll be honest. I've never written like this before in my life. I am, but then I've never felt so strongly about something before in my life. This I really see it as this is something where you either resist this or you live in shame. I have to live with myself, and what I see happening is so wrong. The measures are having such a disproportionately crushing effect on those who can afford it the least. We are trampling over the futures of children, of people trying their hardest from difficult backgrounds, and we are just pulling their lifelines away from them. And for anyone who has managed okay through COVID to do nothing, I think it's despicable. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. You have to. We are reaching a point now when you either stay silent and compliant with this, in which case you are part of the problem and you are a sorry excuse for a human being,
Yeah.
or you stand up for what you believe in and you fight for the rights of people who sometimes who can't fight for them themselves.
It's a very good point that actually, because what you did a speech recently in Manchester. I think it was some kind of women's,
Yes,
yeah,
yes, yeah,
really good speech. And there was one point that struck me when I watched the recording of it, and you were talking about, people would read your posts on Facebook because you're quite outspoken on your public
yes,
wall on Facebook, and
yes,
a lot of people are not. And you said something quite revealing actually about society in general, and you were saying people come up to you and say, I saw your post or I read your blog, or mainly I saw your post on Facebook and I really liked it, but I couldn't like it because of my job or because of, and they had a million reasons in their mind, but that's a protest. You know,
I know,
if if you can't bring yourself to say, I agree
I know,
and I like that, but they're they're too scared of how others might judge them
I
because of that social media like then we have got some serious serious issues and this is people who are awake and again everybody's got to step out. If that's your protest today, make that your protest.
Yeah,
Step over that line and say, I'm going to like it, or I'm going to love it, or I'm going to comment and say, agree. I
yeah.
agree wholeheartedly with what you say, and I don't actually care who
What
sees it.
anyone else thinks. Yeah, I know. I know.
I think that's really important, that stage for a lot of people. And then from there, like we've got with Awaken Pages, take your money,
Yes.
let your money be your weapon. Let your pound be your protest pound. The money in your pocket. Don't give it to the same guys who might be pulling the strings, and like Amazon and people who benefited when we were all locked down, and we can Facebook and and Zoom all benefited when we were all locked down. Sales went through the roof. You know, Just Eat delivery people, all of these guys, McDonald's queues out the door. These guys all benefited, and they'll still benefit if we're in lockdown. So don't give them your money. Give it to somebody else. So there's a million ways you can make cakes. You can like a post. You can change where you spend your money. You can get
Yeah.
out and protest. You can start a blog.
I
You
mean,
know,
I think the reason why I love Awaken Pages, and I have to say hats off to you because it is so well built. The structure of the website is super professional. It is not. There isn't anything kind. Although there is lots of passion from the people, from the businesses who are there. This is a super professional. The way that you have structured that database and the site, I use it because I want to use it.
yeah,
I'm now going on it first and seeing whether, as suppliers are listed, seeing whether any of the suppliers that I want are there first, and then if they are fantastic, I'm going through to Edinburgh in a week or so to see about getting a scarf made by that amazing weaver that you
yes,
that you
yes.
had on. Um,
These are all simple. That's a good one, and well worth their support. And all of these people,
yeah,
get your
yeah,
wallet out and
your
find somebody to buy from.
Um, but I am loving buying from proper people.
Hmm.
And whether they're on your Awakened Pages yet or not, or whether I'm looking locally. But once you start throwing a few ripples, a few stones into the pond, the ripples go out, and serendipity happens.
Yeah,
Like my son. I was in the middle of writing something. I didn't feel like cooking, and my son ordered a pizza, and he got a pizza from Domino's, which it is what it is. But the pizza delivery guy said, um, I see you like pizza. He said, well, I make pizzas. I've got a farm and I make stone baked pizzas on this farm. We are having a pizza night on Saturday. Would you be interested? So I'm like, well, yes, of course. So through actually, even from the most unlikely place, you can find connections, but just be
yeah,
open to to them, because he came, he delivered, he was Italian, I'm Italian, so we had a bit. I speak Italian, so we had a bit of a chat, and from that thing, I could very easily not have talked to him, or I could not have picked up on the, hey, we're doing a pizza night. But
yeah.
yes, and from that, I found them the most amazing place, and we'll be doing that and nurturing our local community and creating our networks. And I hope to God I'm not going to need a network. That what I'm doing right now is just a nice to have, because it's a better quality of life, and I'm choosing to give my money to the good guys. um, but I don't know, I've never felt so uncertain about the future as I do facing what.
That's it. We've got to a certain extent sort of uh, hope for the best and plan for the worst
Yes,
to a
exactly.
certain extent, because we're quite positive creatures, but it's a very negative world that we live
Yeah,
in. If you want to be realistic about it, this is not a pleasant uh, position to find yourself in. If you actually look at what's happening in Ireland, France and
Yeah,
other countries with regards to these passports and things,
yeah.
and
I will,
how that plays out.
if you're not vaccinated, you can't eat indoors in those countries that you've mentioned. In
Yeah,
Cyprus, you can't go into a supermarket.
yeah,
Now, as I said in my blog, I'm sure that home deliveries will still be available to the unclean, but I'll be damned if I'm putting my money to people who would gladly and without a second's thought exclude me and anyone who has chosen not to have the
yeah,
vaccine for whatever reason. I do not want to support those structures.
yeah. And the thing is, and this is, I've been reaching out quite a bit to sort of cafes, bars, and restaurants, and there's a concern. You know, some of them don't want to create a red flag for their
Yeah,
business or put a target on their back because, but on awakened pages, we're not saying anything that we're not saying anybody's ripping up the rule books. We're not saying that, you know, come here and these businesses don't have anything at all. You know, the business owner may decide that he wears a mask. Maybe he
yeah,
does. That maybe he'll welcome you, and he'll say no mask, we don't ask, and you'll have the great time there. If he wants to do that to be commercially compliant, keep his other customers happy, then that's kind of
absolutely. That's what
his
he.
call. Yeah,
These, especially these independent business owners, especially in public-facing retail, have had the year and a half from hell. They are surviving, if at all, by the skin of their teeth. Whatever they need to do to survive, they have to do.
so we have to accept that. We
And
just have
we
to
have
accept
to be incredibly kind about that. And just because
it.
whatever we may think about masks, and frankly, I think it's like expecting a chain link fence to stop midges. But
Yeah,
whatever you may think about them, legally there is a legal position, and these small business owners have been reported by people snitching on them and getting visits from the council. So
that's quite common actually, and that's not competition. That's someone feeling unsafe. That's a that's and again that person's been brainwashed,
yes,
and they've been brainwashed and programmed to snitch. They're in a
yes,
snitching frame of
yes,
mind. So
yes,
I know a very good cafe owner, brilliant guy, absolutely brilliant guy. I won't name him here. Very good guy. Runs a brilliant, very awake. Runs an awakened cafe.
yeah,
You will get an awakened service, no doubts about it. But he deals with all. He doesn't discriminate against anybody. He has had. Uh, Certain customers have gone on to TripAdvisor and they have, taken him to the cleaners. They basically made him look like an absolute nightmare, and it just puts a target on his back, and it makes it that people don't want to visit, and it affects his takings in what is already a very difficult market. Now, moving forward, all of these companies have to make a decision. What kind of business are you going to be? If and they cannot do it in the UK, but it looks very much like it's going to happen. If they go for this passport idea for cafes and shops and bars and restaurants, which I think they want to slide it in the back door.
mm,
That it's
yeah,
death by a thousand cuts, but they're getting there with it. It's in the mindset. It's a hop, skip, and a jump away, Helen. Now, if they get that over the line, then these cafe owners that we want to support today have got a decision to make.
yes,
What kind of cafe owner do you want to be? Because
mhm,
the government are saying to you, you're either a passport cafe owner, which means you have to qualify yourself, Mr. Owner of the cafe. You, you have to be you have to have a passport as well, or it's not a passport safe and it's not a safe environment for everybody. So you can't. It's not like not
I have,
wearing a mask anymore. So they then have to think now. That's why we have this window where we want to invite the cafe owners, the bars, and the restaurants in without putting a target on their back. Just saying, did you? We support what you're doing right now. Whatever it is you're doing right now,
yes,
we'll come along because you think you're awakened. We'll look at it, and if we think it's good enough for us, we will give you your custom regularly. I don't need 100 bars to go to. I just need two or three good bars, two or three good restaurants, two or three good cafes. I'm happy. They can have all my money all the
yeah.
time. and
Yeah.
I'll support them. Because
Yeah.
what I want them to see is the value of the awakened economy. Because if they can see that now, they'll make a better decision in a few months' time. They'll say, do you know what? I think I could just go awakened only. And, you know, I'm not going to accept it. And we need them to take that position. So we really need to get out there and find them and support them. So
Yeah.
again, that's a kind of appeal to anybody who knows any of these cafe owners to ask them to watch this and see what we're actually about. I mean, we are very, very supportive and understanding of their situation. You know, we're not going to turn up.
Pages are really good. Your pages are really good because there is no campaigning. There is no you must be do this, you must do that.
Yeah,
It all it is saying people who share our values. It's how you need to express that given the legislative climate in which you work is up to you. But we know that you care about civil liberties, respect your customers as humans and not as principally disease vectors,
yeah,
and that you will, with a light and respectful touch, welcome those who are wearing masks and those who are not wearing masks,
that's all
and
we
that
want.
there will not be discrimination between them.
Yeah.
And that's what you're asking.
And those are the best places to be for both the mask wearers and the non-mask wearers
Yeah,
because that's where we all used to go together. We just didn't have anything to differentiate us. Like, I'm a mask wearer. It was the same people. You know,
I
we were
know.
just all in a pub. We all went to a pub. When was the last time, Helen, you could go with six of your friends, like us, maybe not wearing masks, and turn up at a random pub? They do not want six of us walking in there
I
right
know.
now. A random
I
pub doesn't. They would rather have a hole in their head. You know, um, they're and this is the challenge that we've got. We have to support. We have to be um, understanding of their current position, and if their current position is suitable enough for you and your family to go out and have a decent meal and feel welcomed, and they might be staff there who've got their own opinions and they're entitled to them, and they might want to wear a mask. They might want to wear two damn masks. I don't care. That's up to them. You know, they've
Yeah.
got their own decision. So have we. So we want this ability for people to recognise that people have choices, and that is a hop, skip, and a jump onto the passport, which is again about choices and bodily integrity and all the different things that we're trying to achieve. Now, there was one other thing, Helen, I wanted to chat to you about. You moved on from. You're still doing the Cake and Liberty, and it's
Yeah.
going great. But you're writing your blogs as well. But you've also attended the London protests and a few other protests. We did one in Edinburgh, and you were there as well. Um, the London one, I was going to put a little video up for everybody to see because there's a little scene of you and your Mary Poppins Cake and Liberty, and you took cakes down there, didn't you? You did your thing and your umbrella. So I'm going to put this up on the screen so that people can actually see it, and I'm just going to. Now that last little bit there, I think I'm a bit older than most people here, but I think that's like swagger they call that when you're just swaggering.
That
Well, I
was
watched that. I can't remember where I was doing. There was something happening actually in Scotland that day. I think we were at a protest in Scotland that day when you guys were at the London one. Or actually, I think we were at a party or so. I can't remember anyway. But you guys went down to London. I remember you were all going down. You were all excited. And then I saw that video and I saw you in it, and I thought that's just you, you know, walking through London. And was that your first London protest? It was, wasn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah, and that's my trademark look. I have about 4 umbrellas now, um, and that's my Mary Poppins look
Yeah.
because I wanted it to be as non-confrontational as possible. I wanted to make myself look as non-threatening when I'm starting conversations with strangers. So I felt that that was pretty non-threatening.
Yeah,
Um,
no, it looks really good, and again, you looked as if you were having a ball. But I loved watching that wee video, and I loved just watching you. You were just loving it, I think, that day, and it was really
well,
nice to watch.
to find myself in thousands upon thousands of other people who also thought, hang on a minute, this is not right, was such a relief because, I live in a town of 20,000 people. And yeah, and to be in a majority for once was just brilliant.
Yeah, no, that was good. Well, listen, Helen, we said we would take about an hour, and that's us just
Yeah.
slightly over that now. I think we've covered pretty much everything that we wanted to cover. We've spoken about the Scottish Government's new plans, and there was another thing. I think there's a protest coming up soon that you wanted to talk about.
Yes, yes. On Saturday, I'll be out in St Andrews between 11 and 12, handing out cakes. So if anyone watching feels like a trip through to St Andrews, please come and say hello. And then on Sunday, I am going through to Edinburgh at 2 o'clock on Sunday. There is a protest outside Bute House by concerned parents, Us for Them Scotland. I'm not entirely sure who is organising it, but it's concerned parents who are just protesting about the fact that Scottish school children still have to wear masks in schools. And there's going to be uh, I'll be there with more cakes. And there's going to be music and singing, and it's going to be a light-hearted event in between 2 and 3 outside Bute House in Edinburgh on Sunday. And if anybody wants to come along to that, it would be lovely to see you too.
Yeah, and for the English audience watching, Bute House is Nicola Sturgeon's
Ah, yes.
residence in Edinburgh. So we're protesting outside her house. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, so thank you. It's been great to sort of do a deep dive into your story there, Helen, and find out a bit more. Thanks for your time tonight, and thank you for
Absolutely.
the good people for watching, and people will catch up with that on the
Yeah.
recording as well. But appreciate your time, and thank you very much again.
Thank you, Steve. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
See you.
all the best. Thank you.
Bye.